Well, the scheduling gauntlet we've been talking about finally caught up with the Eagles last week in South Philadelphia. Now it's on to a massive Sunday nighter in Big D. Sal Pao has all the angles on Eagles Cowboys. Sean Green and Justin Bruni will join us for all your Week 14 picks, props, starts, and sits. And Eric Allen, one of the all-time great Eagles and NFL cornerbacks, will join us to talk about his Hall of Fame nomination and how tough it is to play corner in the NFL today. That is all next on a massive Week 14 edition of This Week in Pro Football.
It's time for This Week in Pro Football, a deep dive into the key issues and marquee matchups in the National Football League. For the next 60 minutes, we invite you to sit back or lean in with host Pat Callahan as we preview the week's Eagles matchup, big games, breaking stories, and all news NFL. It's This Week in Pro Football, right now on JAKIB Media Sports.
Welcome, everybody, to a Week 14 edition of This Week in Pro Football. We're live on JAKIB Sports. Pat Callahan joining you as we sift through the rubble of Week 13 and get ready for week number 14. And we are 14 weeks into this, ladies and gentlemen. It's hard to believe. It's almost like Labor Day was last week. We were talking about week one, but here we are, 13 weeks into the season, and the Eagles still in the midst of this gauntlet, which Sal himself correctly identifies as a 7-week gauntlet. If any of you watched the Thursday night game last week between Seattle and Dallas, the Seahawks really should have won that game. It would have helped the Eagles out immensely. But Seattle will be a formidable out for Philadelphia a week from Sunday. But, of course, this week, Sunday night, the Eagles are in Dallas to face a team that has scored 40 or more points in 4 straight home games. This is a serious challenge for Philadelphia, a team that really is on an offensive roll right now. And you remember, it was not that many weeks ago that they took the Eagles right to the end of the game in a 28-23 Eagles win in South Philadelphia. Sal Pao going to be joining me in just a few minutes. We have a million things to talk about with him. And then, as I mentioned, Sean Green, some interesting props and picks for Eagles Cowboys and other games. Justin Bruni will talk about your fantasy playoffs. And then we get to Eric Allen. Eric Allen will be joining me in about an hour's time. And I'm very excited to talk with Eric and about his Hall of Fame nomination. He's a Hall of Fame semifinalist. And it would just be great to see him get into the Hall of Fame. His credentials are impeccable for the Hall, as Sal Paolantonio pointed out to me. Sal, of course, a Hall of Fame elector. And we'll talk to Sal briefly about Eric, too, in just a few minutes. All right, Zan, if you could bring up, let's take a look at the playoff picture right now. After the Eagles lost to San Francisco last week, the Eagles still have the 1 seed at 10-2, but their margin of error has now virtually disappeared. San Francisco now has the tiebreaker over Philadelphia and has a pretty easy schedule the rest of the way. A couple tough games maybe for San Francisco, but to me, they have 3 lock wins in their remaining 5 games. So the Eagles are going to have to stay ahead of the 49ers if they want to get that all-important 1 seed and get that 1 week off. But in the NFC right now, as you look at it there on the right-hand side, San Francisco will just destroy whoever they play in the first round of the playoffs. Minnesota does not belong in the playoffs. Neither does Atlanta, but Atlanta's going to get – Atlanta or somebody in the NFC South is going to win that division, and Dallas should dust them with no trouble if the Cowboys end up as the 5 seed. Could be the Eagles if all goes wrong Sunday night in Dallas. In the AFC, you got Miami now as the number 1 seed, not Kansas City. Kansas City has dropped to the 3 seed now after another desultory offensive performance last Sunday night in Kansas City. Sal and I have talked about in the past, I think Kansas City's dereliction of the wide receiver position has really caught up to them now. And really, Patty Mahomes is as good as ever. He just doesn't have enough guys to throw to. Some officiating things now in that game. We're going to talk about that too. But Baltimore in the number 2 seed, the Ravens host the Rams this week. You should not have a big problem in that game. Baltimore, as I've said all season long, just playing their usual great regular season football. We'll see what happens come January. The 4th seed, Jacksonville, I've never seen a worse injury that apparently will not cost the quarterback any time. But Trevor Lawrence, limited practice today in Jacksonville. He might actually play Sunday in Cleveland. I don't know. We'll have to see about that. But I'm not. I just don't see Jacksonville as someone who's going to threaten Kansas City, Baltimore, or Miami in the AFC. All right, Xander, thank you very much. All right, just a minute before we bring Sal on, I just want to touch on that officiating thing. If time allows, I'm going to ask Sal about it too. But obviously, it's just a toothache for the NFL that will not go away. Sunday night in the game between Kansas City and Green Bay for a national TV audience, Patty Mahomes drew a 15-yard foul from the Green Bay when he was clearly in bounds. And then a terribly missed pass interference call near the very end of the game. It was Marquez Valdez-Scantling, so maybe it didn't matter. Maybe that's why they didn't throw the flag, but it was clearly interference against Green Bay. And then, of course, they'll talk about the Hail Mary play, and it's true. But to me, the Hail Mary play, there should never be a flag for interference. It's just a big jump ball, and I'd hate to see a game decided on a yellow piece of laundry on a Hail Mary pass. But still, problems for the NFL. I have very definitive ideas on how to fix officiating. I hope to get it with Sal if time allows today on the show. Let's bring this gentleman on right now, Xander, if we would. The host of the NFL Matchup Show and the senior ESPN correspondent and the best ESPN correspondent, Sal Paolantonio. Sal, how you doing?
Oh, Pat, you mentioned it. I can't believe we are going into December football. It's a 5-game sprint to the finish.
Right.
In the 2023 season, and every down, every quarter counts now. If you're a playoff contending football team.
Sal, I said in the open that this gauntlet that you and I have been talking about for Philadelphia finally seemed to catch up to them. San Francisco came in last week off 10 days rest in a home game laugher against Seattle. Philadelphia off of 7 days and a 5-period overtime win against Buffalo. Did the Eagles just at least temporarily run out of gas last week?
I do believe rest was a problem. I do believe the fact that the Eagles were on the field in the rain against Buffalo for 92 snaps on defense, that was an issue. No Zach Cunningham at linebacker, that was a major issue. There's no question about it. That's why you go out and you get a Shaq Leonard to kind of shore up the linebacking spot. Pat, the 49ers had 148 yards after contact. Since week 1, that's the most the Eagles have given up. Since week 1 of last year, that's the most the Eagles have given up, 148 yards of offense after first contact. You know what that says, Pat? That says that the tackling just was not there on defense.
Right.
So that's the number 1 problem. The number 2 problem was rest. The number 3 problem is they don't have a good third down defense right now.
Yeah.
And if you listen to Nick Sirianni in his press conferences this week, you listen to Sean Desai, they clearly know they have to change things. They clearly have said they're going to try different things. We're not allowed to see that part of the practice. None of the beat writers are, so you can't report on it. And players and coaches are not going to talk about exactly what they plan to do. Here's what I think they're going to do. I think you're going to see them blitz more on third down, take more chances. Because right now, blitzing 4 puts so much pressure, physical pressure, on your down linemen to get to the quarterback, and so much pressure on your secondary to hold up in coverage for too long. And it's a major problem. And I think they will take some chances in this football game against Dak Prescott. Problem is, Dak has been one of the best quarterbacks against the blitz in the NFL over the last 3 years. But they have no choice. Right. They're on the road against Dallas. They can't play a bend, no break defense against Dallas in Dallas. They must take chances defensively.
All right. Now, they just finished playing a game. And as you said, and I'll use your term because I think it's very descriptive. They got boat raced last week against San Francisco. But if you line them up, Sal, you got Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle. Now you're playing Dallas. To me, it's not as formidable. You're talking about CeeDee Lamb, who's very good, but there's a big drop to me in the rest of the Dallas receiving corps and the tight end position and the running back position versus what the Eagles just faced. If the Eagles could shore up their tackling Don't you? I think they're going to be in they're facing an offense that I think they can compete much more favorably against.
Well, all you have to do is look at what Seattle did against Dallas. Seattle put in a big scare against Dallas, against that Dallas defense.
It sure did.
And how did they do it? They got the ball out of the quarterback's hands very quickly. They had an offensive game plan in the passing game that allowed Geno Smith to get the ball out of his hands quickly. Now, on average, snap to release against San Francisco, Jalen Hurts was 3.92 seconds. 3.92 seconds is a virtual eternity when you're playing a turkey bowl game with your brothers and cousins. In the NFL, it is literally a galaxy of time.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Right.
So, and if you go on various film study websites, as I do, and I study some film, and I obviously study the Eagles game. I'm here at NFL Films right now and getting ready for the show for tomorrow morning's taping. And you look at it, especially in the first quarter, in the first drive, they had some great play action fakes dialed up where they had receivers and tight ends behind the secondary, and Jalen Hurts, for whatever reason, did not pull the trigger, did not throw the football.
Right.
So that has to happen in this game. To me, it's up to the quarterback. I don't think it's the offensive game plan. I don't think it's the schematics. I will say this, Pat, people say, well, they're not running the ball. They're running the ball. They're not running effectively. It's not a question of running it effectively. It's a question of volume. No matter what you do, stick with the run game. I sent you those quotes earlier in the day from yesterday. Offensive coordinator Brian Johnson said what? He said, it doesn't matter whether we're running well or not. We got to stick with it. Right. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I lit a candle at St. John's Church for him to say just exactly that.
And that's what we'll see. We'll see, but I think they have a good, it's funny. We talk about a 10-2 team having a puncher's chance. I think the Eagles.
I do. I think they're going to beat Dallas.
Yeah, I think they got a good chance here.
So two changes have to happen. Blitz effectively on third down. I'm using that word effectively for a reason. Blitz effectively on third down because Dak's good against the blitz. And two, stay with the run game. Why? It'll at least bleed clock so you're not putting your defense on the field. Your defense is gassed. They played a tough Niners team. They were on the field for 92 snaps against Buffalo. Take time off the clock.
All right. When we get back here in This Week in Pro Football, we are going to talk with Sal about the schedules of the four teams vying for that number one seed in the NFC. And we'll also get to hear from Sal on his 6 teams that have separated themselves in the NFL. That and a ton more on This Week in Pro Football presented by Kennedy Ford.
Celebrate your victories in style at Spring Mill Country Club. From Eagles wins to baby showers, weddings to birthdays, our picturesque venue is ready to host your special events. Make memories that last a lifetime in our stunning surroundings. Call Spring Mill today at 215-675-6000 and elevate your next event to unforgettable heights. Contact us now to book 215-675-6000.
John Kennedy Ford. Their reputation sounded too good to be true, so my partner and I decided to do a little digging.
They know we can see them, right?
We could get them a great deal if they just come inside.
They made us. Run! Uncovering a better car buying experience is easy at John Kennedy Ford. Enjoy your ride.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
Hi, welcome back this week in Pro Football. Pat Callahan here with the great Sal Paolantonio from ESPN and the host of the Matchup Show. All right, Sal, before I bring up that screenshot, let me follow up with you on what you were just talking about with the run game, all right? And the question is this: can DeAndre Swift do it? And as a corollary to that, Leonard Fournette is sitting doing nothing on the Buffalo Bills practice squad. Why, are they thinking about go sign him off that practice squad, get him in there, and a guy like him, a Jay Ajayi type, to eat up that clock? Your thoughts on that?
Well, Pat, I have been on your show all year long, and I have been advocating one more running back. I said that in September. They are one running back away. Now, I think it might be a little too late to bring a running back on. I'm not in the mind or in the office of Howie Roseman, but, Howie looks at everything. That's the brilliance of Howie Roseman. His phone never stops. Pat, they only had 18 rushing attempts against San Francisco.
Right.
48 pass attempts. And, they didn't run the ball early. They didn't run it late. They didn't run it enough. They have one of the best run game coordinators in the NFL in Jeff Stoutland. They have the best offensive line in the National Football League, the most athletic center in the NFL, a guy going to the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Right.
They are fully capable of running the ball on anybody. Last year, can I remind you, basically the same defense except for Javon Hargrave. The Eagles ran the ball down the Niners' throats in the NFC Championship game. 4 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not the coach of the team. I don't pretend to have all the answers, but this seems like a pretty simple solution to me.
And I don't think, Sal, that the Dallas front four is very big. I think it is that front four that can be run against. I think you just run right at Micah Parsons and eliminate his biggest assets. The Eagles are averaging 4.1. They're 8th in the league in rushing yardage, 4.1 yards, versus last year they finished with 4.6. So, I mean, it's not like they've abandoned it.
No, the problem is not personnel, it's desire.
Right. Yeah.
And they ran at Parsons. They ran it right at Parsons when that Dallas came in here. You go back and look at the stat sheet of that game when the Eagles beat Dallas and Philly. You won't find Micah Parsons on the stat sheet.
Yeah. Yep. All right, Sal, again, let's talk about that Eagle defense there just again for a minute. Now they're facing a team I said earlier in the show, scored 40 points, over 40 points in 4 straight games. The Eagles defensively, Sal, as you pointed out to me earlier in the week, and I saw this from Elliott Shore-Parks, they're 24th in points allowed, 29th in points allowed per drive, 29th in red zone defense, and they've given up their 27 touchdown passes allowed, which is 31st in the NFL in front of only Washington. So, I mean, these stats are piling one on top of another. But is this something that can be materially fixed in time for Sunday night?
Blitz. That's the answer. They don't have a tremendous amount of speed in their secondary. They have savviness. They have experience. They have toughness. They have smarts. Blankenship, super tough guy. Slay knows what he's doing. Bradbury knows what he's doing. Byard certainly does. You watch them on tape. They're close to the top in the league in defensive pass interference and defensive holding in the secondary.
Right.
Because guys are getting by them.
Right.
And the reason why is because the pass rush is not getting there. If the pass rush gets there, the secondary will look good.
All right. Right. All right, Xander, why don't you bring this up, Sal? If we could, for a second, just take a look at the schedules of what I consider to be obviously the 4 contenders for the number 1 seed in the NFC. I think the Eagles, you mentioned it, and I gave you the credit for it earlier in the show. The Seahawks, this is a 7-game gauntlet the Eagles have faced here, not 6. They still got to go to Seattle, which is going to be a tough out, flying back from Dallas to Philly, then all the way out to Seattle for what is now a Monday nighter. But then a pretty vanilla finish for Philadelphia. What do you think of that? The Dallas schedule looks a little more daunting, yes?
It certainly is. I like the Eagles' chances on Sunday, bounce-back game. They haven't beaten Dallas in Dallas since 2017. Right. They are due. Jalen Hurts is due to have a better game. Dallas Goedert will be back at tight end. I think their passing game will be better and more productive. I think the things that they're going to try will be effective against Dallas. I think they'll have real problems at Seattle because Seattle's going to lose this week to San Francisco.
Right.
And Seattle's Waterloo will be Monday Night Football against the Eagles in Week 50. That will be a very, very difficult game for the Eagles, I think. And then, it's Giants, Cardinals, Giants, and, the Mummers Parade. And that's about it.
I mentioned earlier, Sal, the 49ers schedule does not look very tough. Seahawks, Cardinals, then they do host the Ravens at the Commanders, home against the Rams. I think Seattle's going at worst, Sal, 4-1. So Seattle's going to win 13. I mean, San Francisco is, and the Eagles have to hold serve there, and if they want to keep that number 1 seed because they lost to San Francisco. All right, Xander, thank you very much for that. All right, Sal, you had mentioned looking around the league here that you see 6 teams that have really separated themselves going into the last 5 weeks. Right?
Yeah, you got 5 games left, so let's handicap this. It's a 5-game sprint to the finish. You just put up the NFC. I have really only 3 teams that I see in the NFC that are fully capable of making an unadulterated Super Bowl run, and I think it's Philly, Dallas, and San Francisco.
Agreed.
I think Detroit. It could act as a spoiler. I think Detroit's going to have a really hard time against Chicago. It's never easy to win in Chicago in December. And the Green Bay Packers could be a little bit of a spoiler for somebody. Seattle, Seattle's next 2 games will decide the fate,
right?
I believe, of that organization in many ways. The quarterback, maybe the coach.
Agreed. Yeah.
So Seattle, the next 2 games could make a lot of noise. There'll be a problem, but they're not going to the Super Bowl. And in the AFC, it's Baltimore, Miami, and Kansas City. Buffalo could be a spoiler. Denver blew their chance by Russell Wilson's 3 interceptions against Houston last week. They had a chance to win that game in the 4th quarter.
Right.
If they had won that game, it would be a different story. Denver would be making a run, but that's over. And Trevor Lawrence is hurt, or Jacksonville would be a serious problem for just about everybody. The one thing with Baltimore is Lamar Jackson was sick at practice again today.
Yeah.
And missed a little portion of practice as an illness. He's always sick in the month of December, it seems.
Yeah, it's true, Sal. It is true.
I just always am concerned when they had 14 wins 4 years ago and lost to Tennessee at home.
Right.
In the opening round of the playoffs. I think it was a divisional round.
Right.
And then Tennessee lost to Kansas City, and Kansas City won the Super Bowl that year. But I mean, Pat, Lamar is like Dak to me. You got to prove it to me in the big moments.
Right. And Sal, and staying in the same conference for just a minute, Sunday, Buffalo travels to Kansas City. This is it for Buffalo. They're sitting there, the 10th seed now in the AFC at 6-6. But do they have a chance here? Because their offense is much more high octane right now than Kansas City's, which is really hard to believe.
It is. If you're just looking at matchups, personnel, and scheme, Buffalo should win the game. But it's really hard to win in Kansas City.
Right.
It's really tough to do.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're going to be able to pull it off.
Right.
They had a hard enough time winning in Philadelphia when the Eagles are giving up so many more yards than Kansas City's defense. I think it's going to be a tough game for them. Their major game, their standoff game, line in the sand game, if you will be when Dallas comes in there the following week, comes into Buffalo.
Right. All right, Sal Pal, I got a few minutes left with you, and I'm going to do this. I mentioned at the start of the show about officiating again and how, again, it's the official root canal of the National Football League. But I'm going to provide you 3 ideas that I think the NFL could do, and I want you to just comment on each one, okay?
All right, you got it, Pat. Here we go.
All right. Because I think that the solution to bad officiating is less officiating. So first off, Sal, eliminate.
Pat, whoa, Pat. You can stop right there. I agree with you 2,000%. The solution is not more penalties and more officials.
Right.
It's less officials and less penalties.
Fair enough.
Because when you look at the games and you look at them closely, and everybody who's watching this program at home, is a football fan and watches the games closely, you could literally call 3 or 4 penalties on every single play.
Right. You're right. So my first one, eliminate the illegal contact rule, that 5-yard rule. Now, I'm not saying that the defender could drape himself over you like they used to do back in the day, but that it's not automatically a penalty after 5 yards. Everybody's just sick to death of a 3rd and 17, and one of those incidental contacts happens. It's an automatic.
I don't agree with that. I think the biggest thing has to be pass interference. They have to find a way where you call pass interference and it's not a 50-yard penalty.
Right.
That if it's over a certain number of yards, then you only get 25 or you only get 15 out of it. And there has to be degrees of pass interference too.
Okay. How about
if you tackle a guy, then it's a spot foul.
Right.
If you get entangled with a guy, then it's 15 yards. There has to be differences. And here's the real problem for the NFL, and I agree with you, Pat. Roger Goodell said in 5 or 10 years, I forget that number he put on it, the NFL will be an international game.
Right.
Pat, if you have this level of officiating problem and this high number of penalties, you're not going to get the international audience to love the game the way we do because we've loved it our whole lives.
That's fair. That's entirely correct. Let me just try these 2 of them and see. All right, I'm 0 for 1 with you now. Let me try this one. And it seems minor, but I don't think so. Obviously, I'm promulgating it, and that is go back to the old offside rule. I'm sick and tired of this. A guy flinches on the defensive side and comes into the neutral zone, but the ball's not snapped yet. All 5 offensive linemen get up like they've been hit with an electric prod, and you get a neutral zone infraction. You don't need that. Let him get back. If he gets back, the play continues.
All right, Pat, I'll give you that one.
All right, appreciate it. My last one, Sal, is they've got to stop with these completed pass rules. I'll give you an example. The game Jacksonville, no, it wasn't. It was. I think it was Jacksonville, where a pass is completed in the end zone, and the defender clearly has trapped the ball. He's clearly trapped the ball, but instead what we get is, oh, no, his hand was underneath it. He had control. No. The ball is half on the ground. I think the league needs to go back to that's an incomplete pass, and that's the end of it. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I have to look at it really much more closely. I think the bottom line is you're right. There needs to be fewer penalties and fewer officials. Now that you have a major part of the operation gambling, a major source of money, and major scrutiny, this is a big issue.
Yep.
And if you want to grow the game internationally, this is a big issue. And if they don't look at it, they're making a mistake. And I know you're going to have Eric Allen on very shortly.
Right.
I want everybody who's listening to get on social media and promote Eric Allen getting from the current semifinalists of 25 down to 15. The voting is happening right now. The voting ends next week. I'm one of the 46 selectors that vote. Paul Domowitch, everybody knows him, used to be at the Philly Daily News, is the lead presenter. I'm helping Paul. I think the number one thing to remember, if you go on my Instagram site, Sal Pal ESPN, I have this very critical stat that separates all the other numbers you'll hear about Eric Allen. And you think to yourself, why in the world is Eric Allen, the original shutdown corner, not in Canton, Ohio? Eric Allen has more interceptions, Pat, and more return touchdowns than 41 of the 45 Hall of Fame defensive backs and more than 21 of the 23 Hall of Fame corners, Pat.
Yeah. It's an inalienable stat, Sal. It closes the door on that debate. It really does, in my opinion. He should be in the Hall, given that. And I'm going to talk to him about it, Sal. But I just think, and it's great what you're doing. It's great what Paul's doing. We need to, because this guy's been too anonymous in his career. He was just a really, really, really excellent player. But he was no Lester Hayes. He wasn't Mike Haynes. He wasn't flamboyant. He just did his job. And he was a quiet leader in that locker room. And but I think he's got a really good shot this year.
I hope so, Pat. And I would implore everybody, listen, enthusiastically tell your friends and your family, get on social media And the more public knowledge there is, that'll put pressure on the voters to pay attention. We've done our part. Certainly, we're getting close now where, he's going to go into the senior pool, and then it's going to take forever for him to get in. So we gotta act now. This is it.
All right. Well, Sal Pao, it's great that you're doing that. And I know your voice carries a lot of weight in that room. And so good for you. And thanks a lot for joining me.
I'm the Tip O'Neill of that room, Pat. I got the vest sweater like you. I'm like the Tip O'Neill. Pat, where do you get that vest sweater? Is a nice sweater. We've got a Brooks Brothers sweater, Pat. What do you got?
Yeah, it says, I swing by Ventresca's every now and then and just see what's
Hey, Pat, I'm an extra large. I like that blue, navy blue.
Yeah.
Tell Frankie Ventresca Sal Pao needs a sweater.
I'll do it. I'll do it right away. Just remember, all football's local, right, Sal? Is that a famous saying, right? All right, Sal Paolantonio, everybody check out the matchup show Saturday and Sunday. And Sal Paolantonio, thank you very much. We'll talk to you next week after the Eagles and Cowboys.
All politics is local. That's what Tip O'Neill said.
I know. All right,
and
Sal.
All football is global. You got it, Pat. I'll talk to you next week.
All right. Sal Paolantonio, as usual, an excellent segment. Thank you very much to Sal for joining me. All right, listen, we get back here. Sean Green is going to check in, and we're going to talk about some picks and some props, Eagles, Cowboys, and a couple other big games this week. It's This Week in Pro Football, presented by Kennedy Ford.
Discover the essence of true community banking with First Bank, your trusted partner across eastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Their network of branches brings you convenient access to dedicated personal bankers who understand your unique needs. At First Bank, you're not just a customer, you're a valued member of the community. But that's not all. They are excited to join forces with another pillar of the community banking world in eastern Pennsylvania, Malvern Bank. Their team of professionals will fit seamlessly into First Bank's culture of dedication and understanding your financial aspirations to fuel your success. With a deep-rooted commitment to Eastern Pennsylvania, Malvern Bank stands as a testament to community values and unwavering support. Experience the difference of real relationships and dedicated personal bankers. Connect with any member of the team today at our Westchester office, conveniently located at 849 Paoli Pike, or you can call them directly at 484-881-3800. First Bank is an equal opportunity lender and member FDIC. At Whistler Pearlstein LLP, we assemble the most effective team to handle all of your legal needs. There are players and pretenders, but our hustle and heart set us apart. In practice now for over 75 years, we're proud to be one of the most prominent full-service law firms in the Philadelphia region. We offer 17 different areas of practice, including business, corporate, and tax education law, real estate, zoning, and land development, municipal law, and litigation. Our top-rated attorneys and staff are laser-focused on client success. We strive to provide outstanding legal counsel with the highest level of care and consideration. Let us show you the Whistler way. Learn more at WhistlerPearlstein.com or email Michael J. O'Donohue at mod@whistpearl.com. WhistlerPearlstein.com or mod@whistpearl.com.
I want to be a game changer in construction. I want to be able to provide diversity in the workforce, and it starts at the top. I started Rodriguez Construction Group in 2013 with 2 employees, and we're 85 strong today. M&T has been a great partner since day one, providing us the access, the opportunity, the funding to be able to continue our growth. We can change the community in a positive way, one person at a time, one job at a time, and one family at a time. I think M&T Bank is very committed to the community, just like us.
Welcome back to This Week in Pro Football, presented by Kennedy Ford. Pat Callahan here. Give me a follow, would you please, at TWIPF Pat. You can follow the network at JAKIB Sports. You can follow this guy at Sean Green, the host of the Sports Gambling Podcast, and a guy who just every week is being feted by somebody as one of the top prognosticators and handicappers in the nation. That's and Sean, how you doing, pal?
Yeah, doing great. Of course, the Eagles got their butts kicked in, but other than that,
they did.
Yeah, doing pretty good here.
Good. Now, are you ensconced back in LA, or are you in Vegas? Where are you?
Yeah, I'm in LA. Do the Friday show on VSiN in Vegas. So every Friday, hop on the old Southwest flight out to from Burbank, and then out in Circa there. Awesome sports book. Really, if you get out to Vegas and you love gambling on sports, highly recommend Circa. You can't beat it.
All right. By the way, speaking of highly recommended, Sean's segment here presented by the great folks at Live Hotel, Restaurant, Casino in Philadelphia. All right, Sean Green, we talked that you mentioned how San Francisco just completely ran over the Eagles. Just give me a quick take now. You and I have been talking the last few weeks about the NFC Championship odds. I assume now San Francisco is like you got to bet 800 to win 100, and everybody else is in a distant second. Is that right?
Kind of. I mean, you look at the odds right now. San Francisco's plus 150, Eagles are plus 250, Cowboys plus 425. So kind of interesting. Now, obviously the 49ers would have the tiebreaker over the Eagles, but Eagles are still one game ahead. You look at their schedule, it ends Giants, Cardinals, Giants. I like our chances in that one. Eagles have a tough game at Seattle after this Cowboys game, but the 49ers don't have a cakewalk schedule as well.
I think it's easier than it's as easy as the Eagles ends up though, Sean. They got Seattle. I see you like Seattle this week, but you don't think Seattle has any puncher's chance to win that game, do you?
Well, here's what I would say. Last 10 games straight up at home, the 49ers are only 3-7 against Seattle. Now, Seattle coming off long rest, desperate team. And you listen to the 49ers press conference, they're talking about, oh, hey, we gave the blueprint of how to beat the Eagles to the Cowboys. There's no, maybe looking ahead past the Seattle team. So 10.5 points, I definitely like that, but they might be a little frisky here. And then I think really a game that could be tough for the 49ers is at home against the Ravens. So if they get past that, maybe they win out here. But if they do that, they still need the Eagles to lose a game.
They need the Eagles to lose a game, and I think this is the one, obviously, for the Eagles Sunday. I think the Seahawks, the most cogent thing I'll offer about the Seahawks, who really should have beaten Dallas, was they should, without fail, go back to those uniforms that they against the Cowboys. They are 1,000,000% better than the nonsense that they wear, especially those highlighter uniforms. They kick out every now and then, but those blue and silver ones are just beautiful. So, all right, Sean Green, let's talk about some props here. Eagles, Cowboys. What do you see there? I wanted to ask you specifically, what prop is there a certain prop like yards over under for AJ Brown versus CeeDee Lamb?
That's a good question. I can try and pull it up here real quick, but I would imagine it's somewhat similar because they're both having pretty good years. I would actually, if I had to guess, I would say that. Oh, sorry, I'm just taking a second here to load. But I would guess to say that AJ, his total would be slightly higher than CeeDee Lamb. Now, usually when you get closer to kickoff, you will see like the head-to-head. And actually, you're CeeDee Lamb's at 88.5, AJ Brown 77.5. So a little off on that one.
How about that? It's 88.5 for CeeDee.
That's really high. He's having a great year.
As I said, though, I said to Sal that the supporting cast for Dallas is not as good as the supporting cast for Philadelphia. Even I said, now the Eagles were facing San Francisco with McCaffrey, Kittle, Ayuk, Samuel. That's not the same caliber in Dallas once you get past Lamb, right?
Yeah, 100%. I know Tony Pollard, everyone was high on him coming in the season. He's kind of had a disappointing year. Right. And then the Eagles get back Zach Cunningham, which, not like an all-pro by any means, but they were so thin at linebacker. And you really saw it in the yards after catch, the tackling. Like, it was just super, super sloppy. So some of that, I think, was just, playing.
I think it was fatigue, Sean. I do believe the Eagles really ran out of gas in that Buffalo win in overtime, and in comes a team with 10 days rest from a home game that was had that game circled on its calendar, Sean, for 10 months, and they're just an arrogant bunch of. Man,
I agree, but and the Eagles defense, the defense showed up for those first couple drives, and then to your point, it did feel like they hit a wall physically. And
I wanted to ask Sal that, and we ran out of time, but I'm a big proponent of football psychology. And I believe that when the Eagles only went up 6-0 in that first quarter after dominating it, but didn't come away with any touchdowns, I think that psychologically deflated the Eagles sideline, and all the Niners knew on their sideline all they needed was one touchdown, and they got it, and that was the end of that.
Yeah.
Had the Eagles put up a 14-0 job, that might have been like that NFC title game,
Different game. Yeah, and then the other flashpoint, I think, was when the Eagles cut it to 8 when it was 21-13, and then the 49ers just respond with another Debo touchdown where they Reed Blankenship did get held, but still, like, there was just no resistance from the defense. I think that was really the, like, all right, we got nothing.
I know that the boys at the Sports Gambling Podcast have an excellent little corner on officiating. Do you have any take on the officiating crew that's going to do the Sunday night game, and what impact, if any, they might have on the game itself?
Well, if you look statistically, they're very the officiating crew is very pro Philadelphia Eagles, 7-0 in games that have been ref by the Eagles, and a pretty big discrepancy with the flag. So if the Eagles do win, I'm sure in all my mentions it'll be like, oh, the refs gave that to you, the ref show. So I don't know. Maybe he's a fan of the Eagles. Go Birds. So we'll see. I mean, they're always fun to break down the refs. Honestly, I think your best bet when analyzing that stuff is for totals, because that stuff, I think, there's a little bit more consistency, whereas like, hey, this guy always calls pass interference. If you're getting a ton of pass interferences, you're likely to put up more points and go to the over, versus a guy who calls it, lets them play a little bit more. I think that's where the report has its most value, on totals.
All right, Sean Green, there's 3 games I wanted to look at here with you. First being Philadelphia, Dallas. Philadelphia, I see mostly 3.5. The Eagles. I assume you are going Birds on that. And I think the Eagles have a real good chance to win this game. I really do. I don't think that Dallas is of the caliber of San Francisco. That was already proven earlier in the year, 42-10. And I think the Eagles, they've never, what was the stat there? But Jalen Hurts hasn't lost back-to-back games in 2.5 years. How much do you like Philadelphia here?
Yeah, I like him a lot. I mean, I mentioned Zach Cunningham coming back on defense, but I really think the return of Dallas Goedert is going to help open up this offense. The safeties, they can't shade towards A.J. Brown. It forces them to play the pass a little bit more in the middle of the field. That opens up stuff for the run game. So I think Goedert being back is a nice boost for this offense. And yeah, Jalen Hurts doesn't really lose back-to-back games. You got to go all the way back to the middle of 2021, like you said, to find a back-to-back losing streak for Jalen Hurts. So I'm optimistic they show up. I mean, you listen to A.J. Brown talk about the energy wasn't there against the 49ers, and come Sunday, you'll see a new level of energy. So I'm with A.J. on that one. All
right. 6-6 Buffalo. You mentioned a Waterloo here. Their Waterloo is coming up this Sunday. Buffalo currently the 10 seed in the AFC. Really shocking, Sean, if you think about it.
Yeah.
And they couldn't go to a worse place in the AFC to get it right than Kansas City. But the Chiefs' problems of their own. They can't. Their offense is grinding now as opposed to lightning because their receiving core is so ineffective. Sean, who do you like here? Kansas City, a 2-point favorite here.
Yeah, I understand Buffalo's coming in off a bye and they're a desperate team, but I got to take Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid coming off a loss at home with a spread under 3. You're not going to see a lot of these opportunities as a gambler, and I think this is a good spot for them. As desperate as the Buffalo Bills team is, so is this Kansas City Chiefs team. And yes, I understand their offense has been struggling, but you got Rashee Rice. I think they need to use Rashee Rice more. I think he's a real bright spot in the receiving core. Travis Kelce, I think, is due for a nice chunk game here.
Very quiet the last month or so.
Yeah, and on the other side, like Josh Allen just figures out ways to turn the ball over and to lose these games. Like the Bills are just kind of a snake-bitten team. I don't know if the bye was enough to fix the issues in Buffalo. And if they had blown out the Packers and they were living fat and happy on the land, maybe you could talk me into the Bills with the upset here. But the fact that they're only a 1.5 favorite at home coming off a loss, and the Chiefs have lost, 2 and 3 in their last 5. So they really need this game. to kind of stay alive in the number 1 AFC seed, and especially with Jags, losing Lawrence here for a little bit of time. This is their time. So I think a highly motivated Chiefs team, and Arrowhead is always super tough to go in and get a W.
We just got a few seconds left. The other game I did mention, or I wanted to touch on, was Baltimore hosting the Rams. Rams, a 3-game win streak. Now
Let's go Rams.
It's supposed to be, but rainy, 18-mile-an-hour winds in Baltimore. Do the Rams have any kind of a chance here to cover, or God forbid, win the game?
Yeah, definitely. Right. I think they do. I definitely covering with that 7.5. I mean, you look at Baltimore 1-8 against the spread last 9 games here when they're a favorite of over 7 points. And you saw their offense against the Chargers, who not a great defense. And Baltimore really struggled to put up points without Mark Andrews there. So maybe they figure some of that out in the bye. But I think you could see a clunky Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens offense. And we are taping this here on a Thursday, and Lamar Jackson didn't practice, dealing with an illness. So if any of that comes into the game on Sunday or spreads within the locker room, you might see a lethargic Ravens team on Sunday.
All right. Well, I look forward to that as a Ram fan. I'd love to see it. We'll see how that plays out. But all right, where does everybody find Sean Green over the weekend besides you and your posse wandering all over like that HBO show?
Oh, yes.
Where does everybody find you on a network for up-to-the-minute picks and props?
Yeah, just go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com. All the sports are covering, free picks, free bets, free shows. Can't miss it. Just any place you watch shows, type in Sports Gambling Podcast. We'll come up somewhere there. So always appreciate the time, Pat, and good luck with your Rams.
All right, Sean Green, thank you very much for checking in. We'll talk to you next week, pal. All right, listen, when we get back, I've held this gentleman up. When we get back, I want to get him on here, Justin Bruni. We're in fantasy playoff time. I'm going to hit Justin with a bunch of names and ask him, is he done with these people? And some other names, are these people now rising stars? We'll do that next on This Week in Pro Football, presented by Kennedy Ford.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
John Kennedy Ford. Their reputation sounded too good to be true, so my partner and I decided to do a little digging.
They know we can see them, right?
We could get them a great deal if they just come inside.
They made us. Run! Uncovering a better car buying experience is easy at John Kennedy Ford. Enjoy your ride.
Johnny Apple's restaurant and bar opened in 2001 and for over 20 years has been serving great food and good times to Bucks County residents, friends, and family. Ideally located at 184 Buck Road in Holland, Johnny Apple's offers a terrific array of steaks, seafood, and daily specials. They also host private parties and affairs of any size. For excellent food, great company, and a relaxed lunch or dinner, check out Johnny Apple's restaurant at 215-953-9900 or at johnnyapplesrestaurant.com.
Welcome back This Week in Pro Football. Pat Callahan joining you here. Justin Bruni going to be joining me right now. Eric Allen coming up in about 10 minutes. One of the Eagles' greatest defensive players for a long time. A 14-year Hall of Fame career. He'll be joining us in just a few minutes. All right, how about we get Justin up here, Xander? Justin Bruni from SGPN, and we're going to talk some fantasy football. Justin, how you doing?
Doing well, sir. It's Thursday. Happy week 14.
All right. Presented by the great folks at Concrete Cutting Systems. JB, I want to hit you with some names here, and I want you to tell me in your usual draconian fashion whether you are done with these people or no, hang them in there, keep them in your lineup. They're going to break out. Justin Herbert.
riding out Justin Herbert. Yeah. Going to be very tough to replace what Justin Herbert can provide for you in fantasy football. No dissimilar to our discussion about Justin Fields last week. He just has a lot of upside playing in an offense that's going to have to pass the ball a lot. They've actually deterred away from Austin Eckler from his inefficiencies as of late. So I still think there's a plenty of upside for Justin Herbert, especially this week going up against the Broncos. Very good matchup. Also, potential nice little comeback week for Austin Eckler. Broncos have been very bad against the run this year.
All right, but the fact, Justin, that neither Herbert nor Eckler have provided anything in the past 5 to 6 weeks doesn't deter you. Are you saying the law of averages is finally going to kick in? These guys are going to burst. Is that what your thought is?
Yeah, again, it's just going to be very difficult. Even in a single QB league, I don't know who you expect to replace Justin Herbert in your lineup. Like if you were able to pick up CJ Stroud, great. That's an okay matchup this week going up against the Jets, but the Jets are still top 5 for fewest fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks. It's not an amazing spot. Another guy that you may have been able to pick up is the same guy in this matchup with Russell Wilson. He was readily available on the waiver. So if you're asking me between like Justin Herbert versus anyone that might be available on your waivers or that's on your bench, I'm still probably riding out Herbert. Baker Mayfield, good example, has a good matchup this week. Hasn't had really bad numbers this season. One of the better seasons he's actually put together playing with big playmaker Mike Evans. I would still start Justin Herbert.
How about that? Who knows how these things go, Justin? How a Charger team with Herbert and Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler and that kind of firepower can go into Foxborough and not put up a single touchdown. It's amazing to me, but
it's a nod to the Patriots defense. I'm certainly not looking forward to it this evening. I'll tell you that much. I'm not expecting a lot of points tonight.
I got to tell you, injury or no, I was not going Najee Harris against.
It's tough, especially with what you saw Eckler do last week. It's hard to trust Najee. I have leagues where I have him in my lineup and also on my bench. As you know, I play in many, many leagues. So some situations I can't avoid it. I'm not going to start a Seattle running back in favor of Najee this week, for example.
Is there one player that you would play in that game, that Thursday night game, New England at Pittsburgh?
I still think Deontay Johnson is very live with Mitch Trubisky throwing him the ball. Mitch and Deontay had a good rapport when Mitch has been in the lineup. I think Jaylen Warren is live as well because of his skill set. He's a speed back. Like we saw Austin Eckler get bottled up last week up against the Patriots, but even with Najee coming in, and a nod to Najee, he's never missed a game. He's never missed a game since coming into the league, and he's going to continue that streak tonight. But I see him getting a lighter workload, and the workload's been about 50-50. And I see that workload going in favor of Warren tonight, probably 60-40, 70-30, pending game flow. So I really like Warren and Deontay tonight.
Couple other names I want to know. Are you finally done with these people, or are you going to give them the Justin Bruni treatment and let them go and wait for them to turn around? DeAndre Swift has been very, very quiet for the Eagles in the last 6 weeks.
I thought, last week, I think he went like 14 for 80, just no touchdown. This last game was not good. Like it was pretty bad. But I also think that came from just the offense being able to pass the ball with a lot of efficiency. Again, a tough situation to bench him. I'm going to ride him out this week. And I think the upcoming matchups, if I remember correctly, are pretty favorable to the running back position. So I think while he hasn't maybe been amazing for you in the last handful of games, he's going to be lock and stock for you in the playoffs.
All right. Let me hit you with a couple wide receiver names that I think these are veteran names and get long time fantasy guys. But I just wonder if there's any gas left in the tank. And that's Cooper Kupp, who last week 5 for 33, I think it was, or 5 for 39. And a touchdown, but still. And then Tyler Lockett, who apparently has become he's getting targets, Justin, but DK Metcalf is swamping him relative to red zone. Just give me your thoughts on Kupp and Lockett.
Yeah, I absolutely love DK Metcalf. He's my most exposed player this season in my 200-plus team, so big Metcalf guy. But I really like Lockett and JSN this week. Call me crazy. I know the matchup's going to be tough, but I'm really against the Seattle running backs this week. Charbonnet banged up. Kenneth Walker could be coming back, still banged up. The Niners, top 3 in the league for fewest fantasy points allowed to the running back position, but they are top 12 for receivers. I do see some opportunity here, no dissimilar to, was Devontae Smith had a nice little spike week in garbage time last week. I think JSN and Lockett are going to be live options this week. I think Metcalf might be the guy that's slowed down a little bit more. San Francisco, a very good defense. I think they're going to take away their best weapon this week, which is Metcalf. I like Lockett and JSN a bit more.
All right. Just two other names. Are you done with them? And you better say yes. I know that you're like the Fred Rogers of fantasy football.
You're going to say Garrett Wilson.
You're just Sonny, but I'm going to hit you Breece Hall, and I know you won't give up on Garrett Wilson.
I will never. I'll never. I just love Garrett Wilson too much. I like these guys in this matchup. Zach Wilson's coming back. I mean, they try.
Do you hear what you just said? Zach Wilson.
I mean, Tim Boyle was bad. Tim Boyle was not very good. Let me say this, okay? Garrett Wilson, since week 4, the Jets have played 9 games. In 6 of those games, he's had double-digit targets. It's not the production you're chasing in fantasy; it's the opportunity that you're chasing. You have to try and chase the highest ceilings. In most of my leagues, it's the last week of the season. That means I'm trying to make the playoffs. I'm trying to score as many points as possible. A lot of my leagues, most points are getting a nice little payout pre-Christmas, pre-championship round. So I want to get out my highest ceiling players, especially in the last week of the season, whatever the situation is. Even if I'm well ahead of the league, put out the highest ceiling. You can only put yourself in a better position to finish for points.
All right. I told you last week I like those Packer receivers and the Ram receivers. I could not believe Puka Nacua, 70-yard touchdown against the Cleveland Browns. I sat him, of course, because everybody told me to sit him, and then he goes off. But the Packer receivers starting to come on. Of course, Christian Watson, another guy on my team, he goes down. Unbelievable. Just when he was getting hot. But anyway, now let me hit you with 2 other names, Justin. I want you to tell me, are you up on these guys for, as you mentioned, a very pivotal week 14? Jake Browning comes out of nowhere after doing nothing the week before against Pittsburgh and has a heck of a game against Jacksonville. Would you give him a possible start this Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you are in that situation, if you're looking at guys like Browning, Trubisky, Zappi, Flacco, he's at the top. I mean, you just look at the guys that he's playing with. I'm not sure if it's him or the receivers that are making the production exist there, who's making who better. I don't think it matters. I think if you're in a dire situation, specifically in 2 quarterback leagues, maybe you just lost Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, Browning should be at the top of that list amongst those players. He showed us he could do it. Yeah, if you lost Lawrence, maybe you have Derek Carr. I might want to give this guy a shot. The last name, Justin Jefferson returns for Minnesota after a lengthy hiatus because of a hamstring. Give me your thoughts on that. Are you rushing him right back into lineups? Smoke him if you got him. You drafted Justin Jefferson probably first overall. Like again, in week 14, you put your best players out there. If Justin Jefferson is on the field, I'm getting him out there. That's just that simple. And I think that elevates Josh Dobbs' value as well. Again, if you're in that mix of, oh my God, what do I do at quarterback? I think Josh Dobbs is a better option with Justin Jefferson coming back to the lineup. There's no question. That's a shame for Dobbs. He was sailing along there pretty good, and then he had just a disastrous game against the Bears. What was that all about? What the heck? Where did that come from? We'll see if he bounces back. I hope he does. All right, Justin Bruni, where does everybody find you for that dreadful Sunday morning? Oh, my God, who am I going to play? It's going to be a tough sweat this week. Of my 200 teams, I have many advancing to the playoffs, and I have many of them that are very fringe. So it's going to be, the next 4 weeks is going to be brutal. I'm very excited. You guys can find me at SGPNJB on the Twitter, on the X, and at SGPN Fantasy Football on the YouTubes. 200 leagues. You're clinically insane, Justin. I just want to say that. Okay, I can say. I have a problem. I don't mind saying so. I have no issue with that. Leading the group chat. All right, Justin Bruni, thank you very much, pal. We'll talk to you again next week. All right. Be good. All right, Justin Bruni joining me. All right, we get back here on This Week in Pro Football. I'm very, very, very excited to have joining us the great Eric Allen, one of the greatest cornerbacks to really play in the NFL. And a member of the Eagles' 75th anniversary team. We're going to talk about his Hall of Fame semifinalist and a great career and how tough it is to play corner
in the NFL today. That is all next on This Week in Pro Football, presented by Kennedy Ford.
Anything can happen when you go live. Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia, voted best casino in Pennsylvania.
Concrete Cutting Systems Incorporated, the concrete cutting specialists in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. These guys are celebrating their 28th anniversary as the industry leader in the field of concrete cutting and robotic demolition. Any type of concrete cutting or drilling, concrete demolition or interior excavating, call the specialists. Concrete Cutting Systems. They're the only full union concrete cutting company based in Philadelphia. Call the guys today at 215-533-0652. The website is concretecuttingsystems.net. Let's go Eagles.
Evolution Energy Partners has helped hundreds of businesses save millions of dollars on their energy spend. They offer electricity and gas procurement strategies, efficiency audits and engineering and financing solutions, as well as online utility bill management. To learn how your business can save, visit www.evolutionep.com or contact Chuck Herschella at 610-329-8288. Evolution Energy Partners, energy solutions to improve your bottom line.
Hi, welcome back here this week in pro football. Pat Callahan here on JAKIB Sports, ready for week number 14 in the National Football League, and I'm very pleased and proud to have joining us right now a member, as I said, of the Eagles' 75th anniversary team, a gentleman who played 14 years at a top level in the National Football League out of Arizona State. He was a second-round pick, by the way, one of the greatest second-round picks the Eagles will ever make, and that's Eric Allen. Eric, how are you?
I'm doing great here at home in San Diego, enjoying the weather, of course. It's a nice day today, even though we're in the beginning of September. So it's a great day here, but great to be on with you today.
All right. Eric, thank you very much. And let me start with this. You played 216 out of a possible 224 games over 14 seasons. How did you possibly pull that off? And always, and the 216 games you played, you always played them at a top level.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm looking for those other games. I'm not sure where those other games went. I'm not sure if I
had to be a holdout. I'm sure you were holding out.
I remember, though, Buddy Ryan, who's our coach, and everybody, if you don't know Buddy Ryan and about his defenses, he was just an unbelievable coach for us. And I remember maybe my second year in the league, and we were just kind of messing around in the locker room, and I twisted my ankle, and he said, just for that, I'm not going to start you in a game. So I missed a start, but that's what it was about. It was really about being accessible for your teammates. You work all summer long to get in the best shape you could be in. You got your preparation, you're ready to go. I just never wanted to miss a game. Yes, the position is hard. It was difficult, but I didn't want to leave my brothers who were on the football field, out there without me being there trying to support and help them.
Eric, those Eagle teams during those years, the Buddy Ryan years, for instance, that you mentioned, just an incredibly dominating defense that never really got the accolades or the praise that it really should have. Because I think it really even stood up to that famous 85 Bears defense, just in terms of pure talent.
Yeah.
But there were some dominating personalities on that team. Obviously, Reggie White, Jerome Brown, Seth Turner. And you kind of, you were kind of a guy who just did his job and did it extremely well. In the context of the Hall of Fame, where you're now a semifinalist again, and congratulations for that. But is the fact that you were on that kind of team that had some dominant personalities, is that actually hindering you a little bit with voters?
Well, I think so, in the fact that for as good as we were, and we had a really good stretch there, defensively, where we led the league in every category once or twice, yards given up, points, just every defensive category that you can compete in as a team, we finished number one.
Right.
In most of them.
Right.
But in the end, we weren't able to kind of harness all that and win a championship. Right. Or even at that point, get to a championship game. So then when you start to place defenses overall in this, great competitive sport that we play,
right?
And you think about the Bears, you think about the Giants, you think about even the 49ers at a point when they had Ronnie Lott. So they were all able to find a way. And obviously it's a team sport and you got to have a great offense. But I think that's the one thing more than the great personalities, because great personalities are always going to be there, right? The great Reggie White. I mean, just may be the best defensive lineman to ever play football. Right. First, the great Jerome Brown, who everyone just loved. And that was kind of the glue to our football team. And then a couple years later, how Seth kind of emerged, Clyde and myself. But together, we just weren't able to bring it all the way home. And if so, I think a lot more of us would be in this position that I am right now.
Well, there you go, Eric. I was going to ask you that the lack of a Super Bowl ring. Let's face it, it's a league that rewards winners, and you're right about that. The fact the Eagles did not bring home that ring has probably cost you too. And as you mentioned, there's not many Eagles. Well, there's not many Eagles, period, in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But the lack of a ring, you think, really is hindering you also, right?
Yeah, Pat, I think so. And when you get into your later part of your career, it's very important that, yes, the numbers have to be there. And, playing corner, you have to find a way to get your hands on the ball. So if you're playing really well, they're not throwing the ball at you, right? So you have to try and modify and think of things that, you can keep being competitive. One thing that we did was I started traveling. So I would go from right cornerback on first and second down, and we would break down third downs, who was like the best guy on third down. It may not have been Michael Irvin. So I would go into the slot and play that guy. So that's kind of, I was able to travel, go from left to right, play in the inside. But, not having a ring, I think really matters when you start talking about the numbers and the impact that you had. And then late in my career, I was with the Raiders and we played the Ravens in the AFC Championship game, and we were close, but unfortunately, Rich Gannon gets hurt.
Well, yeah. But Tony Saragusa deliberately falls on you, and deliberately. I mean, he did it deliberately. Did he not? Did you guys not say that on the sideline when he landed on him? He spread his hands out like he was landing a plane, and he just crushed his shoulder, right?
Crushed his shoulder. You said it, not me, right? So yes, we were so upset at that point because we had brought in a really good, balanced football team, and I thought that was going to be my shot. I just always said, if a team gets me to the AFC or NFC Championship game, I'll be able to get us over the hump. And although, we played pretty good defense, that Ravens defense was good. But yes, of course, Saragusa flopping on our guys.
That's right. And Rich Gannon, he won the MVP that year. So that was a huge loss. Eric, in your career, 14-year career with the Eagles and the Raiders and the Saints, can you name me an NFL, a quarterback and a wide receiver that you matched up against that you felt was particularly challenging?
Well, I think right away you have to give the respect to Joe Montana and Jerry Rice and the offensive philosophy and system they ran. And many people don't mention this next guy's name, but John Taylor, who was the X on that team, who played the opposite side, was also a tremendous player. He was from, I believe, he was from Philadelphia or he was from Pennsylvania. But, I mean, one of the most competitive guys in the league. So now when you're playing against the 49ers, early on in my career, I didn't travel with Jerry left and right. So I would be on, the right side, and Jerry would come over on my side. And you just knew that if your rush wasn't having a great day, Joe was going to be hot. So it was a great battle there. I think we played them. Our first time was in 89. Their first or second Super Bowl. They came back to Philly. It was a great game.
That was.
So many times, but
that's the game where they put up 28 in the fourth quarter, I think. Is that the game?
Yeah. He got hot. Joe got hot because we had banged him up. I think we were sacked him like 8 or 9 times.
I know. You almost killed him. And all he does is get up and throw 4 TDs in the fourth quarter. Oh, my God. You're right.
Yeah, we're like, this guy still wants to play, but those two. And then, of course, Troy Aikman and Michael Irvin. That's my favorite matchups because of just the battle of the fan base, what it was going to be like that week, all week in town, if we were going there, how the fans were going to treat us. So that was always an outstanding matchup there with Michael.
And Troy Aikman is quoted, Eric, as saying that you definitely belong with a gold jacket. He even mentioned you specifically as someone that helped that front four create sacks because you had to hold the ball a second longer to see if your guy that you were covering was possibly going to get open.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I'm not sure where cover sack began, but I know a lot of times in our meeting rooms, I would call out, "Hey, cover sack!" They're so they're talking about all these, this great pressure, and I'd just be in the back like, "Hey, cover sack!" So we really played off each other, and that's one thing that made that defense so special. Some of those meetings after games when we're just pounding guys, we were having popcorn. It was just a great day on Monday watching film when you're able to beat up on some guys.
No, I can imagine. You guys were the king of the roots. Certainly were at the height of that defense. Now, Eric, this is 18 years now. You've been a Hall of Fame candidate, and you have been a semifinalist before. And I think of a guy like you, and on the other side of the ball, I think of a guy like Torrey Holt, who I think is very similar to you. And the statistics, he clearly belong in the Hall of Fame. How frustrating is it that you have to kind of go through this root canal year after year?
Yeah, Pat, up until last year, I really never did things like this, to kind of promote myself, because I always thought once you get past 50 interceptions, that was the magic. That was it right there. It was kind of like 500 home runs and
right.
automatic in. So as soon as my career was over, I went right to ESPN, and I worked for ESPN for 15 years.
Right.
And it wasn't I was too busy. It was just, I loved the game, and I didn't want to think about, man, I got to go and promote myself, to let people know how good I am.
Right.
But recently, people have come up and like, man, it's been a long time. You may need to, do a little self-promotion to let people know, how good you were when you played, because it's been such a long time.
Yeah.
And Torrey Holt is a fantastic player. One guy I would mention that hasn't been mentioned a lot is Darren Woodson. Yeah. Darren Woodson played that safety slot position that we're starting to see now. We see a lot of linebackers now out of the game, and they bring that safety in the box. Well, Darren Woodson was doing that years ago. So, myself and Darren were impact type players multiple times at the Pro Bowl, all Madden and all that kind of stuff, which is important for players.
Right.
But it's time now.
It certainly is. It certainly is. Your resume, 58 interceptions, 9 interception returns for touchdowns, including, of course, that one against the Jets, which far greater people than me have said was the single greatest interception return for a touchdown in NFL history. So, I mean, and the other stats, I mean, as I said, 14 years, 6-time Pro Bowler. There is a hell of a resume right there for someone like yourself. And I think it is high time that this happened, Eric. Now, you've got some powerful guys. Sal Paolantonio goes on my show every week.
Yeah.
Sal and Paul Domowitz are pushing like hell. And when you get Sal going, you got one of the 5 families going. So,
I tell you, Sal is great, awesome. Our conversations from years ago, he was like the first guy that kind of mentioned, he's like, Eric Allen, he's a lockdown corner. And I was like, oh, all right, Sal. We've always stayed in contact. I mean, just great people there. When I first came to Philadelphia, all those great people, the industry as far as media is concerned, they know their business. They know what it's about. So it's always nice to sit down with guys like him and Dom and compare notes and talk football. Those guys have been terrific, always had my back. So do the Raiders. Raiders also have a terrific staff, great alumni base, always have my back. Both organizations are clearly behind me on this and have my respect and appreciation.
All right, well, that's good. One last question, Eric, before I let you go, I wanted to hit you with was the game now. Obviously, even you having retired now for almost 2 decades, the game has opened up even significantly since then, and such immense pressure from 5 yards down the field on cornerbacks who are supposed to cover guys now, Eric, without touching them, without looking at them, and I don't know how you're supposed to do it. How tough is it, in your opinion, to play that position today?
Oh, it's a tough position. Well, I'm able to be front row at it. I've been working with the Raiders for the last 4 years since we've been in Las Vegas, and I do game day, so I break down every position, pregame, postgame, and what I've noticed is you can't be too physical at the line of scrimmage. It's not going to work. These guys are so great at getting off the ball. If you're a receiver, it's going to be very difficult. So again, I go back to things that made me successful. And you see guys like Sauce Gardner and many others, and they play up here.
Right.
If you're where the ball is going to be at the end of the play, you're going to be good. And so it requires you to prepare and study and have a great understanding of offensive philosophy and formation, those kind of things. And you're going to be successful if you're a guy who can process quickly and, of course, catch the football.
All right, that's right. Which you did 58 times, I might add, Eric. So listen, I think it's really high time. I wish you all the best. By the way, people find you Silver and Black Productions. Raider Nation, of course, is nationwide. So where would people find you online or on cable to watch Raider Game Day?
Yeah, so every week we're at Silver and Black Productions. You can find us on our YouTube channel. That's Raiders.com. And then if you're in the Las Vegas area, we're on Fox 5 post game. I think at 10:30 p.m. on Fox. So we're just kind of doing a great job. The whole department. We do Raiders everything, pregame, postgame. If you're at the stadium, come to the Torch and see me in pregame doing pregame radio with JT the Brick, who's an outstanding guy and does a phenomenal job. So we get it done in the stadium, on YouTube, and on television.
All right, Eric Allen. Listen, I wish you all the best, and I think you're in there. I think you're going to make it. I think you got some powerful guys on you.
Yes.
It's just a well-deserved thing. I think that gold jacket will be yours, and I'll be the first, I hope, to offer you congratulations. So thanks very much for joining me tonight.
All right. Thanks a lot, Pat. Really appreciate it, man. You'll be there at the party too.
All right. Thank you very much. The great Eric Allen joining me here on This Week in Pro Football. Really one of the great cornerbacks. It just did it quietly and effectively. And that quiet, that confidence with which he played has now, I think, hindered his road to Canton, Ohio, because he just wasn't a flashy player. He was a guy who, the statistics bear it out, got the job done. So Sal Pao's exhortation to everybody to get on social media and beat the drum for Eric Allen, I certainly second that. All right, listen, that'll do it for This Week in Pro Football here, presented by Kennedy Ford. I do think the Eagles are going to beat Dallas Sunday night. I think the Eagles win that game. Dallas is playing great football right now, but I think Seattle exposed some things. I think the Eagles are going to watch that film, pick some things up there, and should shore it up enough defensively to come out of there with a win. Be very exciting, though. We'll check it out, and we'll talk to you next week all about it when we reconvene for Week 15 of This Week in Pro Football, presented by Kennedy Ford.
Welcome to Park Bank, a return to better banking. With 7 convenient locations covering Philadelphia and South Jersey, you can now earn more with Park Bank's premier money market account, offering depositors 5% APY on balances under $50,000 and 5.35% APY on balances $50,000 and above. Take advantage of this limited time offer. APY equals annual percentage yield. The minimum deposit required to open the account is $1,000. No service charges are imposed, provided you maintain a daily minimum balance of $1,000. Fees may reduce earnings. The quoted APYs are accurate as of October 10, 2023 and are subject to change at any time. For more information, go to parkbank.com. That's parkbank.com. Member FDIC.
Anything can happen when you go live. Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia, voted best casino in Pennsylvania.